This is my first video. This is A Course in Miracles, video number 1. And I thought I would never ever do anything like this because in the past I generally have been very shy and introverted, and so I never really wanted to use my mouth to talk to people. So anyway, here I am looking at a camera and pretending it's a person. So what I wanted to talk about is immortality versus death, life and death, starting out with the biggest possible thing. Hardly anybody is teaching in A Course in Miracles that the body plays an important role in teaching other people what it is that you believe, and whatever you want to demonstrate, whatever you want to show somebody, whatever is your truth, is going to show up in your body, because your body symbolizes the content of your mind. And everything that you show, everything you demonstrate, everything that you put here as a picture in the dream, in the world, says something to somebody, and it has, in that sense, it has a meaning. So if I am showing a body that is crippled and sick and disabled, probably that means that in my mind somewhere there has to be some kind of belief or a sense of truth that is just not, it just isn't right, because, how can I put it? Okay, I'm going to rewind. I'm going to start at the beginning, and let's start with immortality, because it makes the whole picture a little bit clearer. So, in heaven, which is God's world, God's creation, which is not this planet, God extends himself forever, and God's life doesn't have an end, because God is alive, God is so living, God is so sustaining of staying present and staying alive, and he doesn't degrade, he doesn't die off, he doesn't decrease over time. It's just a permanent, constant life, to such an extent, not just that he just stays in a state of being alive, but he causes there to be life. Like there's an act of healing that is always happening. There's an act of giving of and communicating of and putting in place the continuation of life such that it can not end, has no ability to stop, even if it wanted to, because, as the Course says, a sane mind heals the body. So God has a sane mind. God heals everything that exists all the time, making it impossible for you to be sick or dead when you're in heaven. So, I mean, that should be pretty obvious. I mean, God's creation is eternal life, and it does not stop, has no end. There's no degradation, no loss, no lack. Nothing diminishes, nothing decreases. There's no sickness, there's no death. It's impossible. It's impossible because not God's will, and God's will permanently enforces life and makes it be life. It's his creative will, is that he's constantly sustaining life everywhere, uplifting it and restoring it and protecting it and making sure that it's permanent. So it's not just like, oh, here I am being life, and along comes some stupid event and attacks it, and now the life has been challenged, and more maybe it might waver, it's going to start having some suffering. No, it's going to express its life-giving forces to imbue that with life and to reverse and cancel and restore anything that seemed even remotely trying to attack the kingdom of God. So the kingdom of God cannot be attacked. Anything of the ego, any kind of illusion, any kind of thought of separation, any idea of something exists that is against God's will can't do anything to God at all. So it's like it goes near to it and it just gets dissolved right away, because God is the light and the light dispels the darkness. You can't take a light bulb, put it close to something that's dark, or have the darkness come close to the light bulb and have the light bulb dim. The light bulb shines away the darkness. It has that quality of sustaining, of perpetuating life. Even when there's death, it reverses the death. It heals it, it cancels it, it restores life, it uplifts, it produces resurrection. This is the fundamental, life-giving, outflowing, sustaining, joyous, happy creation force, God's will, that cannot be interfered with at all. It's God's will, it's done, boom. Nobody's going to touch it, nobody can change it, you can't change it, I can't change it, it just is. So this is why the kingdom of God is completely rock solid, permanently safe and protected. Nothing can happen to it, and the ego cannot even touch it or attack it at all. So we get this idea that immortality means life is constantly extending because it's natural, it's in God's nature to extend that life, to broadcast life, to produce life everywhere. And as God creates you as a soul, as a son of God, one of many, and he gives you a perfect reflection of what he is. What he is permanence, freedom, creativity, power, willfulness, happiness, joy, love. Puts all that out there as you, and therefore you have all those same qualities. You can create like God, you can create with God, you will what God wills freely. You have the freedom to choose whether to do that or not, because he even gives you his freedom. Freedom is a very important quality in heaven, because if you don't have that freedom, you don't have free will, and you don't have the ability to willfully want to extend God's love. So God doesn't force you into having to do anything. It's your choice, because he's actually given you this amazing gift that's perfect freedom to, if you want to, choose against him. Although it's not going to produce anything real, you do have that ability. So where do I want to go next with this? Let's see. So when life is natural, life is extending out permanently in a straight line. It goes through the sun, it goes through the sun's creations, it goes through the creations of the sun, and all of those creations are so much alike God's nature that they don't lack anything. There's no reduction in ability, there's no reduction in characters or qualities or any kind of limitation. No limitation at all is placed on a creation. That includes you. It includes anything that you create, and you do have creations in heaven. And anything that goes forth in that just constant stream of creativity is uninterrupted. And you don't create things that die. You don't create things that are limited. You don't create things that are not like God. You are like God, and you create like God, and that creates like God. And so we have sort of these reflections of God's nature, these perfect creations that are perfectly alive, have perfect free will. Nothing can happen to them. They can't degrade, they can't lack, they can't diminish, they can't die, they can't become sick. This is perfectly natural. It is absolutely 100% natural that there is life forever. It's God's will. This is the fact of existence, that immortality is absolutely natural. And anything that goes against that is unnatural. So what happens is we try to impose limits, Holy Spirit says. We try to impose limits on that perfect stream of creation. We try to narrow it down. We try to confine it, stop it, block it, change it, go against it, will opposite to it, deny it. All of these actions try to bring an end to the natural nature of love, to be immortality. So whenever you try to do that, what you're trying to do is you're trying to create something that cannot create like you. You're trying to create something that is limited in its ability to create like its creator. You're trying to produce an end by making something that can't reflect you, can't be the same as you, and doesn't have the same abilities that you have. So you try to make something that blocks life. The body is made as an attempt to block the flow of life, but in its perfect state, its most ideal state, even the body can be used as a perfect symbol of immortality. It can be used to represent and demonstrate in this world, in the flesh, the natural nature of God, His laws, His creation, perfect sustaining of life, absolutely no blockages, love just pouring out endlessly, no limits, no blocks, and that means no sickness and no death. Because what happens with the body, in the same way as God's creation, according to the same laws, is the mind is supposed to extend past the body to other people, because the mind sees itself in them and is one with them. It wants to go past the form, overlook the form, forgive the form, not dwell on the form, not make its focus stop at the form. It doesn't want to collide with the body. It does not want to run into the body as though it has blocks. If you've got blocks in your mind, that light can't go through it. It's supposed to broadcast outward. It's supposed to flow naturally. It's supposed to be an endless extension and expression of love all the time, producing perfect health all the time. when you've got blocks in your mind, what you're trying to do is you're trying to narrow down that extending, that creative power. You're trying to stop the flow of life. And if you do that, the mind stops going past the body and it starts fixating on the body. It starts making you believe that you are the body, that you are this identity, and instead of you being the love that's coming through, you start to look at the body instead of looking past it, which is not forgiveness, and that turns into attack. So your mind is now trying to come out with love while your thoughts about separation and blockage and denial and ego are standing in the way. Thank you, Holy Spirit. And it's as if you're trying to will in the opposite direction from where the love is flowing. Love comes out from God, it comes out of the Son, comes out of you, but the ego in you that tries to will against God, to go against His will, to block love, to block life, to deny life, goes this way. It goes backwards to try to collide with the love that's trying to come out. And because that's your will, if you're trying to will in the direction of your Creator, you're trying to will towards where the will's coming from, there's going to be a collision of wills, and that's going to take place in your mind, and you're going to experience it as conflict and a war with yourself. That war with yourself is self-attack, and that self-attack will produce sickness, because all sickness is mental illness, including physical sickness, because the body's part of the mind. So if you're blocking that love from extending, and you're putting up these blockages and these barriers, and you're not letting the love come out, because you're trying to will God to change, which is ridiculous, because God is permanent. You have the authority problem, and that means that you think that, okay, my will can change God, I can sin against God, I can make God be affected, I can make Him change and be different, and you can't. So now you're colliding with the love flow by going towards the flow instead of with the flow. And you experience that as though it's an attack, because now you've got these two wills that are sort of going head to head instead of just both of them going together co-creatively. So when you do that, you're blocking life, which means you're blocking the extension of life. You're trying to put limits on yourself. You're trying to reduce yourself down. You're trying to confine yourself to the body. You're trying to identify with being a blockage, because the body was made to block the mind. And it causes sickness. All sickness is an attempt to block the will of God. So if you're saying, okay, God's saying, I will sustain you, I'm sustained by God all through the day, and I'm lived by God, and God is putting me out there, and God is expressing me and creating me and sustaining me and making me exist, and you're saying, I don't exist, and God's not my cause, and I'm the maker of myself, and I'm going to have my will be done and not God's will, that is sickness in the mind. And whatever state of mind you have, is expressed in the body, because the body is actually being projected by your mind. You are the mind that projects your body, not anybody else, not God, not the Holy Spirit. You are responsible for projecting the image of your body because it's based on what's coming out of you, out of your mind. You're putting the body there, so you're responsible for showing up as a body in whatever form represents the truth that you think is true in your mind. The body is only a symbol. It is not a thing in itself. It doesn't have its own life. It doesn't have its own will. It does not think for itself. The brain does not think. The mind is the source of the body. And it's caused this way because cause is back here in your soul or your mind, and the body is the effect of it. So it's something that you made through projection, which is similar to extension. It goes in the same direction, but it's a miscreation. So when you put the blocks on life and you deny God, and you've got this thing going on in your mind that says, I don't believe in being immortal, and I don't believe in living forever, maybe not as a body, but you are a mortal spirit. You can exist forever. You are supposed to be constantly sustained. You are supposed to be timeless and ageless and deathless. Where was I going with that? Whatever your mind's thinking and believing, it will project as an outward picture of an inward condition. It will change the image that comes out of you, and that image is your body. Your body is not sitting here by itself, being made by somebody else. Nobody else is fucking responsible for your body showing up in this dream, or whether it lives, or whether it's sick, or whether it's dead on the ground, and you've just gone off somewhere by yourself to pretend, oh, I'm sitting on a cloud and I'm in the atonement and my mind is all nice and fixed and I don't care about the body because the body's not real and the body doesn't exist. It's just a dream, so who cares if it's alive or it's dead? It can be sick and I don't give a shit. That's bullshit, because you are responsible for putting this body here, and it's not existing on its own. It's only existing because you make it exist. So you are completely responsible for how you show up in this dream as a body. And that means there is a direct connection between your mind and your body, all of its conditions and everything. As the Course says, something like, the mind is responsible for every condition of the body. Not just some of them, not just somebody comes along and throws a steaming pile of poop at your head, not just that some meteorite comes and smacks you in the face. It's nothing to do with there are causes in the world that make you dead. It's got nothing to do with you've contracted a sickness from somebody else. It's got nothing to do whatsoever with I'm being caused by the world, and the world is responsible for whether or not I'm showing up as this or that or whatever form I'm taking temporarily. Nobody else is going to maintain the body for you when you've died. It doesn't just sort of go on autopilot and nobody's running it and it decays by itself because that's the laws of the world, and somebody else is making it do it, and oh yeah, I don't need to worry about the body condition because I'm just going to disappear off onto my fucking mountain and look down on the body knowing I'm not a body, I'm free. I'm just going to sort of observe it and not identify with it. If you don't identify with the body, that means you're not hitting the body with your mind. You're not colliding with it because you don't have any blocks and you don't have any belief in being caused by anything outside, because all the cause is coming through you. So you are completely the cause of the body, and any other statement that says otherwise is absolutely bullshit. So if you are in the dream, and if you are having a body show up, and if you are projecting the body, which you are, Whatever state the body shows up in is a direct reflection of your belief system in your mind. So if the body seems to show up as sick, your mind is sick. The Course says very explicitly, a broken body proves the mind has not been healed. And this correlates also to what the Course says, that a sane mind heals the body. And this is simply because, as I was saying earlier, God's sustaining of life isn't just some kind of state that's static. It is constantly increasing life, restoring life, supporting life. Anything that's not life gets turned back into life. It just lives, it's living, it's alive, and it uplifts itself. It keeps itself permanently alive. So if your body becomes sick in the dream, in the world, you've got a mental problem. You've got a problem in your mind. You have a defense against the truth. You've implemented a sickness in order to try to deny God and block God, and you don't want the atonement. So anybody saying, okay, I'm accepting the atonement, and my body's going to stay sick, and I'm going to keep on showing up as sickness. I'm going to keep teaching people that they are the cause of my sickness, and I'm not going to be responsible for removing it because it doesn't matter, never mind. I'll just keep on demonstrating sickness and pretend that I don't believe in sickness. Bullshit. Okay? There's a whole chunk in the Course talking about, and this is very cutting edge, radical, demonstrative stuff within the world that simply says, whatever you show to your brother, you are accusing him of. If you show a sickness, you are trying to be contagious, and you're trying to accuse him of being the cause of your sickness because you're having effects in you, which automatically means he's the cause of your effects and not yourself. So if you demonstrate a sickness, you are attacking the whole world. If you demonstrate a disease or a broken arm, or you get into an accident which conveniently makes it look like you didn't choose it, and your body's now freaking broken and mangled, you did choose every single part of that. You're choosing it now. You're choosing what your body's looking like right now, and you're demonstrating to everybody, I believe in sickness. I believe in being broken. I believe it's God's will that I be suffering. I believe that there's death. Stuff happens to you against your will. These are all the teachings that are coming from your example, because demonstrating is teaching, and teaching is teaching by example. You can't just be an example of the truth of the Course that sits there and just says the words and intellectualizes level confusions to do with, okay, it doesn't matter because it's on another level and none of this is real and nothing happens, so never mind. Doesn't matter if the body's sick or not. Fucking, it does matter while you have one. Because if you have one and you're showing one that is telling people, hey, you caused me to be sick and you've made this body be ill, and it's because of you that I'm like this. That's what you're saying every time that you show somebody that you have a sickness in your body. It transmits a message. And Jesus says, hey, did you know, by the way, whatever plans you had made for him by accusing him of being sinful and the cause of your suffering, including your sickness symptoms, you are going to be receiving the consequences of that plan because it's not going to affect him. You do it to yourself, and now your body's going to be sick. What you use the body for, it becomes to you, which means, without exception, in no exceptions at all, if you use the body for attack, for projecting sin, for blaming, for the reversal of cause and effect, for accusing the world of causing you anything at all, You're using the body to make attack real, to reverse levels, to prove that God is not the cause of you, to prove that you are at the effect of the world. And that means you believe in sin and guilt and death, and that attacks your body, and it's going to make your body weak and sick, and it's going to suffer, and it's going to die, because that whole continuum of shutting down the creative, constant, permanent extension of God, trying to narrow it down, trying to stop it, trying to put external causes out there to stop it, trying to block its flow, is going to produce an end result. And the end is the attempt to kill God's Son. And so death in this world, where the body dies, and it doesn't mean the concept of death, it means fucking bodies dying and being decrepit in the ground and dissolving into worm food. Bodies dying in this world, even if it's a dream, has to mean something's wrong with your mind, which means you are not awake and you are not out of this dream and you're not teaching the truth. You're demonstrating death. There's a whole section in the course talking about how people at funerals are making a mockery of God's will because they are not doing it. They're worshiping death. They're worshiping dead bodies. They're making death real. They're putting out a statement of all this fake mourning, which is all based on loss and lack, to try to say, hey, isn't it awful that this person died, but they were just so perfect and holy? No, they weren't. They believed in death. Okay, nobody dies without their own consent. Nothing happens to you against your will. You are 100% responsible for whether or not you die, because it's not God's will. It's God's will that you live for fucking ever, whether you are a body or not, as a mortal spirit, temporarily expressing as a body in this world, and you're supposed to demonstrate that truth, demonstrate that you believe in it, not just as an intellectual belief, but that you live it. And you show everybody, I cannot be killed. I shall not be sick. I cannot be sick. I do not choose to be sick. Sickness cannot happen to me. Death cannot happen to me. And I am a symbol of the immortality of God's Son. There is only life, and death is an illusion. It's a choice. Death is not inevitable, and it is not natural. It is the most unnatural thing you can do in this world. It is the most unnatural, extreme expression of your desire to stop God's will, to hate yourself, and to try to kill yourself. All death is suicide. Every single person in this world who seems to go through the death process, even if they're not a body, and this is just, okay, my apologies, even if they're not a body, if they die, if the body goes through death, they do believe they are a body. It can't happen unless you believe you're a body. You have to set up all kinds of mental beliefs in order to cause death to occur to such an extent that involves so much organization of the reversal of cause and effect and participation and consent to just even organize the event to occur. You have to be hugely a victim. You have to be totally at the effect of the world. You have to be passive, laying down your life and believing that you can't do anything about it. Poor me, I'm just going to have to die. Oh, it's just natural. Fuck that. Okay, it does not happen naturally. The body is supposed to be able to be sustained permanently if needed, but more likely temporary, because it only has a certain function of teaching until everybody wakes up and goes home to heaven, which is not the earth. So if you're using the body for attack, if you're believing in sickness, if you're believing in defenses, if you're believing in denial, you're trying to reject God's will, anything that's going on in your mind that is reversing cause and effect and putting you at the effect of others, and you're using the body to say, brother, at your hand I am suffering, it's your fault that I'm suffering, it's the world's fault that I'm dying, it's the body's fault that I'm having suffering. No, it's not, it's yours. You're the one choosing it. All death is a choice. Okay? Nobody dies without their own consent. You have to consent to it. You have to say, I willingly choose for this to happen to me, and I'm going to make it look like I didn't choose it. I'm going to make it look like it happened for all kinds of other reasons. Ooh, special reasons that aren't my own. Special causes that are just going to sort of happen by themselves. Things that I just didn't choose. Death is an attempt to make no decisions at all in a state of fear, to try to avoid having any kind of certainty, any kind of power, any kind of deliberation, any kind of involvement or commitment or strength, any kind of truth, any kind of rock solid, real anything. It's giving up on life. It's putting yourself and subjecting yourself deliberately to causes that seem to be outside your control, which are not. It's chosen. You put all the causes there, you put the sickness there, you put the car crash there, you put the hospital visit that goes wrong there, you put the meteorite that smacks you in the head there. Okay? You orchestrate it. You choose it. If you don't choose it, if you do not choose to block the flow of immortality coming out of you from God, death cannot happen. If you don't deliberately try to do something to impede the flow of the life-giving forces of God, how can that flow ever be blocked? And how can those blockages ever manifest as symptoms or changes in the body form or organs that fail or you lose your hair, which is getting close, or anything? All of these things are forms of guilt. All of these forms, even though you're not the body, okay, you are putting the body there, and it's based on your beliefs. So whatever you're putting out there, you're saying, behold, brother, at your hand I am suffering. And you're pretending to accuse them of being the one who's making you dead. And this is happening all over the freaking world. Billions of people are committing suicide. Billions of people are assuming everybody dies. You have to die somewhere. You might as well make your stupid freaking bucket list. You might as well, prepare for death. You might as well get yourself in the mood for it. For a nice little bit of death to come upon you, and then you'll be sort of not quite so upset when it happens because you'll be sort of, peaceful about it. You've accepted it. You've accepted that it's normal to be dead. You've accepted that, it's just how things are. It's what happens to people. No, it's not. Death is a choice. It is optional, and it's completely unnatural. So if you're teaching by your demonstration with your body in this world, showing somebody a picture, a physical picture of some kind of horrifying ailment, even a cold, even a headache, your body's making a statement. This is what you've caused, because the body can only show up those things when you believe there's a cause out there causing this. One moment. So, your body, when you believe that there's a cause outside of you causing your body becomes effect in your mind. You perceive yourself as being affected by, you see yourself as the effect of whatever is the cause out there, and that cause defines for you the kinds of effects that it should produce in you, and you will consent to and put those effects in yourself, in your body, by yourself, with your mind, regardless of what's happening outside of you. You give that sickness to yourself. You implement the symptoms, you make your feelings upset. You are responsible for every single thing that you experience and happens in your body. You put it there yourself, you chose it. Nobody else is responsible. No one is causing you to die. So, what that means is, anyone who still is showing up as a body that's sick or dying or dead is not doing God's will, is not living and demonstrating and teaching through example in the flesh, living what you believe that it's true. You're demonstrating the ego's laws. You're putting yourself at the effect of imaginary fictional causes. You're creating unnecessary suffering in yourself, and now you're also blaming it on the world. Every single person that dies is a suicide bomber that goes out and puts a picture of death in the world to try to accuse the world of completely being responsible for what has happened to it. Didn't want to die, happened to me by mistake, didn't choose it, it was so unfair, it's didn't want it, it wasn't my will, it just sort of, I just passively had to allow it to happen, make it look like I didn't choose it. Really, can't we just orchestrate these bullshit lies, scenarios, dramas and fictions and cover-up stories to try to fake our own death, to make it look like we are not the one that's making it happen. It's somebody else or something else. There's some other cause in the world that's putting the world here. I'm not the one doing it. Yes, you are. So you can say, okay, there's no body, the body's not real, death isn't real, Son of God's free, the atonement says nothing happened, blah, blah, blah. You can say that, you can believe it mentally. It only applies when you have accepted it fully and are demonstrating it. It only applies when you're either out of the body and back in heaven, having a good time with God, being immortal, or you're still showing up as a body and you're using the body as a communication device. Because communication means extension. It means you are completely flowing and extending past. Okay, so had a little interruption there because my storage became full, so I had to delete some stuff. So this is the end of this discussion, I guess. I was just kind of winding up. So if you demonstrate, if you're saying and believing and intellectualizing that death doesn't matter, it doesn't matter if you're sick, and that only applies when you're out of the dream, it only applies when you don't have a body anymore, and otherwise you have level confusion, and you're trying to use that level of truth. No, never mind, death isn't real, so it doesn't matter if you die. Trying to use that level here on this level while you're still in a body, and that is a level of confusion, okay? It means that you're mixing the truths together and you can't experience that truth yet. So you're pretending that it applies now, but you're not really living it now. If you were to live that truth while you have the body still, you would use the body as a communication device. You would allow it to completely flow out perfect love all the time. You would extend God's love, His healing, His sustaining of life, his miracles, his resurrection power, his ability to bring life to the things that are dead and bring them back to life. Miracles fall like drops of falling rain on the dry and dusty world where the starved and thirsty creatures come to die, and all the signs of life spring up. The miracles bless and give life back to the things that seem to be lacking life. Miracles supply a lack, and it brings those things back to life. It's raising of the dead. It literally includes not just you getting out of this state of being half dead, getting back to perfect life. It also means you being able and willing to demonstrate that you can reverse death, that you can say, okay, no, you are not dying, you are not dead, get up and fucking walk. Be alive, demonstrate the truth, stop pretending that you have died against your will, admit that you have consented, and change your freaking mind, rise up and be resurrected and live again. That's what we're supposed to be capable of doing. That's what God's capable of doing through us. God's love is unlimited. There's nothing your holiness cannot do. Every person on the planet should be able to raise the dead. Every single person on the planet should be able to have no sickness in the body at all, and for the body to be in perfect health, to be unaffected by weather or food or time or aging or any other external causes. You're supposed to be able to show up here as a demonstration of the laws of God overriding all the fucking laws of the ego world, including physics, biology, chemistry, space and time, anything to do with size, matter, death, everything. It's all ego bullshit. You're supposed to be able to show people that it's true, that God's will is not like this, God's kingdom is not like this, and that God wills that you live. And that means even while you're in the body in the dream and you're getting towards your happy dream, you are supposed to be becoming happier because you're becoming more alive, and you're making the body become more alive and renewed and reborn and refreshed. And a sane mind heals the body. It doesn't just, everybody's trying to just disappear up their own ass, getting into this mindset of, I'm going to leave the world, I'm going to do all this forgiveness, I'm going to undo, I'm going to remove blocks, and then I'm just going to disappear off into the atonement, and everybody else can fuck themselves. That's not the point. The point is taking away the blocks to love, allows love to shine, allows it to extend, restores life, produces supernatural miracles, raises the dead, reverses sickness, cancels all of the ego's laws, makes it impossible for this body to become sick or dead. And if you're not living that while you're here, you are not being honest. You're not being completely 100% sincere, genuine, experiencing, living, demonstrating, teaching, being an example of immortality. You're supposed to show people that nothing can affect you, nothing can hurt you or attack you, including your body. You're not supposed to be able to be caused to die against your will. The body's not supposed to become sick through some kind of somebody else's caused it, something I ate, the food was a bit off, or I ran out of storage again, so I had to delete some more crap so I can spew some more crap out. So, what was I? There are no causes of anything that happens to you other than yourself. Jesus says you are the ruler of the universe. Nothing happens to you that you have not asked for. If you do not ask for it, it does not happen. It's so decisive and committal. It's so powerful. that you're saying, no, that is not going to happen, and it does not happen. Or you say, I command that fucking happen, and it happens. That's the kind of power that you're supposed to express and demonstrate to show miracles in this world, to teach and show that all of the laws of the ego are absolutely false, don't really apply, and can easily be shown to be changed. Miracles are supposed to show that appearances can be changed to prove that they can be changed, and therefore they can't be part of God's creation. And that teaches you, as you show that they must be illusions. And that's very educational. Anybody that sees that happening is going to be directly, experientially learning what you're showing them. You have to show it. You have to use your body as a communication device to demonstrate the truth, to demonstrate immortality, to demonstrate that the body is nothing, ultimately, and that it is only capable of being used for communication, teaching, education, miracles, bringing life, resurrecting, uplifting, extending, expressing love. And that's kind of where I was going. Everybody's getting onto this bandwagon of the course is all about waking up, getting out of here, doing forgiveness, undoing, collapsing the ego, blah, blah, blah. The whole point of it is get those blocks out the way so that the immortality can extend outwards and you can demonstrate love and express love. Miracles are expressions of love. So the inward movement of undoing the ego is only inward and away because you're trying to get those blocks out of the way so that what's in you can come this way and out. We are supposed to express love and show miracles and prove that there is no death, not just words, not just words. You got to show it. You have to show people death can be reversed. Sickness can be reversed. And if you're not showing that and you're not capable of it, and if you're doing something contradictory, like Jesus says, nobody can learn through mixed messages or double messages. You can't be showing a message that says it's because of that out there that I'm suffering, while at the same time saying I'm not suffering, it's not real, blah, blah, blah. You have to show one thing. One unified message that says only God is real, only life is real, there is no death, I do not choose death, I do not demonstrate death, I don't show it to anybody, I don't put it in my body, I don't make my body suffer, I don't attack the body, I don't attack people. All I do is show an example of the truth of God that is symbolic of the perfect immortality, permanent outgoing of life, sustaining of life, uplifting of life, restoring of life, healing, reversing of all symptoms and sickness and signs of blockage and problems and suffering and death, so that you can be your natural self. Your natural self, as you are in heaven, is that you extend life, you create, you are not the effect of anything at all other than God. God is the only cause of you. All other things that you've made, you made them, you're responsible. So it's up to you. If you want to have this teaching paradigm where you have this one truth over here that says things aren't true and real and I don't need to do this and nothing happened, and over here you're showing people that that's not true because sickness is happening to you and you've got sin and guilt and the death occurs on its own, you're being contradictory and you're not being consistent in your message. And you have to get to where you can be like Jesus and be capable of, willing to, and to actually do, listen, learn, and do in this world for people that are here looking with their eyes on the world that they made. Show them that the Son of God cannot be killed. Jesus materialized the body to show that the mind that makes the body could make another one, and another one, and another one. Doesn't matter, because the mind is the cause, the only cause of the body. And if you show up with sickness while you're saying that sickness isn't real, if you show up as dead while you're saying, I don't believe in death, you're bullshitting. And you have to get honest about it. Okay, you've got to uncover all of these beliefs that you can get away with murder, that you can get away with showing people that death is possible at the same time as teaching the truth. It's dishonest. Okay, you've got to get to where you can be like Jesus and you believe and show, I will not die. I refuse to be dead. I rebuke all sickness. And I not only do I not tolerate any sickness or signs of death or belief in death in myself, I do not tolerate it in anybody else either. Therefore, I'm going to help everybody by healing them, reversing their sickness and death, healing their mind, reversing their blocks to love, getting rid of all the things that are stopping them from expressing love, so that we can all go home together as love, as immortal beings. You can't have this state where we're just sort of saying one thing and doing another. Okay, this is where you got to get the balls out. You got to find the guts and the fearlessness to stand up for what you believe is really true, and not only I got interrupted again, had to delete more of my favorite apps in order to make space for this dialogue. So I will wrap up because I have to get back to work, and I also am running out of room. So, so I don't know how more clear we can be. I will keep teaching this, and I'll keep putting it out there because this whole world is convinced that death is natural and it's supposed to happen, and it happens on its own, and nobody can do anything about it, and it can't be reversed. It is a huge lie. You are to use the body to demonstrate and prove the truth. If you're not going to do that, make the body disappear. Nobody leaves this world through death. Death leads to birth. It's a circle. Nobody can get out of this circle by going through death, by having sickness in the body, suffering in the hospital, and then dying and being considered dead. You have to come back. You're going to reincarnate because you still believed in death. So that has brought you back into the world of death. If you want to get out of the world of death, you cannot believe in death, and you have to believe in perfect immortality all the time and show it and demonstrate it and be an example. Jesus was an example of achieving immortality, not dying. He was not ever sick. He did not die against his will. If he used the body to demonstrate something, he used it to demonstrate it only because it allowed him to demonstrate that he does not die, and he is not the body, and the body cannot die against his will, and he can make another one if he wants. So we have to get to that level where we are examples of God's truth, God's life, God's endlessness, God's incorruptibility, invulnerability, fearlessness, being at the effect of nothing in this world, proving that God is life. So I guess the ego's not too happy about me saying all this, so I'm just going to wrap up because I have to finish up and I'm running out of space. So we are supposed to show God's will, God's truth, God's life, immortality, perfect health, happiness. If you're showing anything else, you're bullshitting. This is A Course in Miracles. 95% of Course in Miracles students don't even know this teaching's in there and don't want to believe it and gloss over it and mangle it and change it into something else, justifying and intellectualizing why it's okay to die, why you can be sick and still be at peace. Bullshit. You cannot be sick and be at peace. Even if it's just the body, you're putting it there, so you must have a belief in your mind. I don't want God's love, and therefore I'm going to defend against it and put sickness into myself. It's a lie. Okay? A Course in Miracles, this is the teaching. Do not demonstrate death, ever. Do not show sickness. Do not make yourself hurt. Sickness is the attempt to prove you can be hurt. You don't want to show that. You don't want to demonstrate it to anybody, otherwise you're teaching it. So We are to use the body as a perfect communication tool to communicate the will of God, the laws of God, the nature of God, the sustained immortality and incorruptible, permanent, unchangeable, can't be affected state of being, using the body to show that to people, to prove through the miracles that we express with teaching devices that this is the truth. Immortality is the truth. Death is a lie. Death is only denial. Anybody that dies is in denial. So, I do not plan to die. I do not plan to have my body show death to people to accuse them of sin. I plan to live, and I plan to accept the atonement and demonstrate it and show nobody has to die. Nobody's at the effect of anything in this world. There are no causes outside of us. It's not God's will that we be dead. It's not God's will we suffer and be sick or have mental illness of any kind. Only the truth is true. It's God's will that you live forever. Anything contrary to that is not God's will. Death is not God's will. Death of the body is not God's will. Belief in death is not God's will. Showing death is not God's will. Dreaming of death is not God's will. If you want to have a happy dream, don't put death in the dream. Okay, this is what we're supposed to show and teach and be examples of. We are the children of God. We are immortal spirit. This is what we need to show people. You cannot die unless you consent to it. Nobody dies without their own consent. All death is suicide. So anyway, I'll wrap up there, and hopefully I made some kind of sense. And I know I got a little bit heated at times because it's frustrating trying to teach this and help people to see this, that it's empowering to them, and they block it and don't want it and refuse it and are afraid of it. And I'm trying to be truly helpful. So hopefully you can understand my British accent, and there will be more videos.